All right, and back to all the Team Delusional questions. Hi, I just watched the episode 6 video. Loved your thoughts on Isabelle. I watched the episode twice to try and understand if there was a romance. I agree. Her story matches Carol's arc in the early seasons. She's leaning on Daryl to protect Laurent. I think next season we will see her inspired by Carol to become the badass who can protect herself. But that is why is pushing or manipulating Daryl to stay. Daryl ain't buying it. It's kind of interesting that you're saying she's leaning on Daryl to protect Laurent. I hadn't thought of a parallel between like Laurent and Sophia, but that's interesting. I like that. And it's also true that, one thing that struck me during the 6th episode that I kind of didn't like, well, there's a couple of things. During that scene when Daryl was trying to get Laurent to kill the Quinn Walker and protect Isabelle, I don't know, she was like cowering and screaming, and I get that she was hurt, and that was part of it, that she might not have been physically strong enough to ward him off because of her injury. But at the same time, I mean, for someone who was billed as a warrior nun who knows how to protect herself, that it was not the best show of independence, let's put it that way. And I didn't question it too much because that was not the point of that scene. The point of that scene was not to show Isabelle being a badass. It was to show Daryl trying to get Laurent to, step up and protect her. And it was about Laurent's growth, not about Isabelle. So it didn't bother me too much, but I didn't love that. But in a way, you could compare that to Carol in that she wanted to be strong, but it took her a while to have the confidence to know that she could protect herself. And maybe Isabelle just isn't quite there yet. So I could see that, and I understand what you're saying, and I think that's a really good observation. The other thing, which is a little bit off topic, that I didn't like that Isabelle did, is at the end when Daryl was trying to leave, and Isabelle immediately jumped all over him and said, "So you're going to abandon Laurent just like your grandfather abandoned his family." I thought that was a really low blow. I thought that was just not cool to throw that in his face like that. I mean, he opened up to her and told her something that he's probably been dealing with his entire life and thinking about a lot. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it was realistic. When people get upset, they tend to lash out in ways that are kind of spiteful. So I suppose from a realism standpoint, it was there, but it did kind of remind me of something Carol would do that's just kind of mean-spirited and self-serving. And I didn't like it that she said that. I was going, oh, yeah, that was not cool, So, yeah, I mean, I think all of these kind of show that, and I'm really not hating on Isabelle. I mean, she's a human being, and we all have fallacies. But it did feel distinctly Carol-like, and let's just say Beth would never have done that. She would never have taken something he told her that is kind of an insecurity of his and beat him over the head with it like that. So, yeah, I totally agree, and I love your insights. Thank you. All right, next one. Beth is very close, closer than ever before, and she's near. It's only a matter of time before her big reveal that'll make everyone go crazy. I'm personally am afraid of the possibility of negative reactions from the Carolers and Bethel haters. Do you have any tips for how to handle it in the best way possible should it arise? First of all, we need to expect it. They are going to have an absolute conniption fit when she shows up. I think the best thing that we can do, though, is not to focus on the negative. I don't think there's any way we're not going to see it because we're all online so much. Number one, don't be afraid to use your block tool. For some reason, when we get online, a lot of us in the beginning don't want to block people, and I was exactly the same way when I first got online. I was reluctant to block people because I thought, I don't know, it's like we have this idea that it says something negative about us or that we are being negative or hateful, but that's not the case at all, you guys. You need to protect yourself, and you need to keep that negativity as much out of your sphere as you possibly can. So anybody who says anything negative for any reason, I just block them. The other thing is that it's always better to focus on the positive, and specifically to focus on emphasizing the positive rather than de-emphasizing the negative. I mean, that's true in life in general. But so what I mean is when she does come back, we need to show her and the actors and the writers and the show, AMC, the TWD universe, all of it, as much support as we can. Like, we need to try to out-cheer them. So as loud as they are railing and as loud as they are hating, we need to be And I don't mean in a mean-spirited way. I don't mean crowing over them or being triumphant or being like, you guys are such idiots. No, we need to just support the fact that she's back and that we have been waiting for this, and we are so happy she is back, and we are so happy that Beth and Daryl are finally going to get their romance and their happy ending, and we just need to be happy about it and make sure that we're posting about it and make sure that we're writing, letters and tweets or whatever, however it is that you do it online. We need to be positive about it so that we are countering the negative. The biggest problem, and I'm really glad because we've gotten some evidence in recent years that the writers and the show are very aware of this and that they understand the reality behind it. And that's very comforting. The problem with the negative people, and again, it's not even just the carolers. I think we need to get away from just saying that it's always them. They're a big part of it, of course, but it's anybody who's a troll online. There are people who will hate on Beth and they don't even care. They don't care who she is. They don't care anything about the arcs, and they probably don't even watch the show. They're just online to troll people, right? Anybody who's doing that, the problem is that they're very loud. So I've shown this before. I've shown evidence of this, but 98% of the fandom is going to be either happy that she's back or they just won't care either way. But either way, they're not going to be angry about it. However, the 1% or whatever it is of people who are angry about it are going to scream way louder than the other 98% combined. Okay, that's just unfortunately the way that it is. People who are angry or insecure or just want what they want and know they're not getting it, they tend to get really, really loud and really, really mean. So all I'm saying is that we need to try to outshine them by being really positive and loud about being positive and really posting a lot and saying a lot and, doing just whatever it is that you always do in the fandom. If you create art, if you create GIFs, if you create edits, if you write fan fiction, whatever the case may be. And we just need to make sure that we're showing them our support so that we are balancing out the negative. And, to follow up on what I said, the reason that we know that they understand this, that it's really a very small percentage of the fandom that is angry, is because Norman said it. And he didn't call out the carolers, but he was clearly talking about them. It was after it was announced that Melissa was backing out of season 1, and he was giving some interview or other, and he said, well, the people that are really angry about it and saying that Melissa was forced out and AMC is doing all these terrible things to her. He goes, the people who believe that are a very small group of people and they're simply wrong. And he said it just like that. And the only people who were screaming about that were the carolers. So it shows that they are aware of what's happening online, but they also know that it's a very small percentage of the fandom that's doing that. So they're not going to listen to them. And, they know that they're going to be very loud and they're going to be really annoying, but they're also not going to cave to them. So that should bring everybody a little bit of hope and comfort, because I've had people ask me, well, yeah, but because the carolers are so loud, what if the writers cave to them? I'm telling you right now, these writers are not the type of writers who will cave to them. Nicotero has said that before too, that they are going to they are going to tell the story that they were always set up to tell, meaning back in season 4, back in season 5. And they know that not everybody will love it. You're always going to have a few people that don't like where it goes, but they're still going to tell the story they set up to tell, no matter what that small portion of the audience thinks. Nicotero said that like a couple of years ago. So, I think the biggest thing, sorry, to bring it back around to your question, is don't get too much in your head about it. Even though the perception is that they are really dominant because they're so loud online, don't make the mistake of thinking that they represent the majority of the fandom. They don't. They represent a very, very small minority. And beyond that, just make sure that we are emphasizing the positive in what we post, and don't be afraid to block them. So that's the best advice I can give you on how to deal with that. I'm genuinely confused. Whose side is Jada/Anne really on, the CRM or Rick/Team Family? Does she have some kind of hidden agenda? I don't think as of right now that she is working against the CRM. I think she is fully thrown her lot in with them. However, there's a lot of loose ends with her. I mean, just the fact that she's still around, clearly she's going to meet up with various members of Team Family again. Okay, there's a lot of foreshadowing for that. And they wouldn't have her still alive, still kicking in the story, unless they had some sort of plan for her in the future. There's also the fact, and me and my fellow theorists talked about this not too long ago, that you have the Father Gabriel angle. I mean, I don't know that anybody was terribly invested in their relationship, and I'm not saying that I ship them necessarily, But they had a relationship, and it was left very open-ended. You know, they didn't say goodbye. She left him behind. He was upset. And he obviously moved on because he started a relationship with Rosita. But they had Rosita die in the final episode of the flagship show. So Father Gabriel is free as a bird again, and it would be really interesting if him and Jadis came face to face after all these years. And because they left it so open-ended, I'm sure they're going to do that at some point. It would be a waste not to. So we don't really know whose side she's on. Jadis's problem is that she does waffle a lot, even during All Out War. Remember, she was first with Negan. Then she agreed to side with Rick. Then she went back to Negan. Then she saw that Rick was winning, so she went back to him. So that's kind of a character flaw for her. She does tend to waffle and go where she believes her best advantage lies. I think there's a very good chance that at some point in the future she could switch sides again. She always had a crush on Rick, right? So if she comes across him, he could very well convince her to help him. And then maybe she would become a double agent and working against the CRM. But we haven't seen a whole lot of evidence of that so far. If you haven't watched The World Beyond, I would really, really recommend it. I actually really liked it. Even though it doesn't have any of our favorite characters in it, they're all new. You come to really like the characters. They are very likable. There's 4 kids that are teenagers as it starts. And you learn a lot about the CRM and a lot about what they're doing. And Jadis is in that series. So if you want to know kind of where we're at with her, I would recommend watching that, and it'll give you a lot of basically what we know as of right now. And like I said, it's just a really good series. And yes, there are plenty of Beth hints and team delusional symbolism in fact, there's, if you're going to watch it, look for, and I'm not going to remember his name, one of the main characters. He's not one of the 4 teenage kids, but he's a little bit older than they are, and he goes after them. And he has a boyfriend that he has been separated from. And let's just say it is so obviously a template for Beth and Daryl. I mean, the symbolism there is like insane with how obvious it is. So anyway, if that's something you're interested in, I really would recommend it because it's really fun. And I really did end up liking that spinoff a lot. Okay. Next one. Was Jada/Ann always in cahoots with CRM before meeting Rick and Team Family? If so, does that mean some of her fallen people like Tamiel and Brian knew of their existence as well? Were they all meant to escape to the CRM, but it only ended up with Rick and Jadis going there? So, from what we know... Man, my phone does not want to stop going off. Remember that when she was in the junkyard and was, the leader of the Heapsters... She was getting food from the CRM. She kept getting those boxes that had the 3 circles on them. So she definitely had some sort of understanding with them, and they were giving her supplies. She also knew how to contact them, how to get herself extracted via helicopter. And there was this whole A versus B thing that we're still a little bit hazy on. But again, this is something you kind of learn. It's not even something they say directly, but you kind of learn it from the World Beyond spinoff. And it just sounds like... very much like Grady, the CRM, even though they have a lot of resources, they're a huge community. So the CR, just the Civic Republic, is like 200,000 people strong. It's massive. And they do live very much like people lived before the apocalypse. They have power that they've put back together. They have pretty normal living conditions, but of course it's very walled off because on the outside, there are still all the walkers. And much like Grady, the CRM, even though they're really successful and have all of that, are terrified of not having enough resources. So and this is part of the reason why we think Grady was, a tie to the CRM, because that was a big part of Grady. Dawn would tell Beth, you're using our food. It takes medicine to make sure you're well, and you need to work off those resources because they're not free. And the CRM is very much the same way. We were always wondering, well, if they know where Team Family is, why don't they just go absorb them? Why don't they bring them in? Because, people are resources and it could be beneficial, right? Well, the reason they don't is because the way they see it, they only have so many resources, and so they have to be very choosy about how many people they take in and how many mouths they have to feed. And you definitely get the sense that if there are too many mouths that are threatening their resources, they're going to start killing people just to get rid of the extra population. So we don't really understand what the nature of Jadis's understanding with the CRM was. I don't know why they were giving her food. However, if you remember in 7/16, which was the finale where Sasha died, Negan had everybody lined up again, had Rick lined up there, and Jadis was asking him for people. And he said, I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but like she wanted 10 and he would only give her 8 or something. And there was just a little tiny bit of a negotiation going on there. I believe she was giving people to the CRM, and that's probably why they were giving her the supplies, but we don't know why. You know, if they don't want to take people in, why would they be taking people from her? And Heath is another one, right? If she sold Heath to the CRM, why? Why did they want him? Again, if you watch The World Beyond, it's probably for test subjects. They are doing experiments and research. So again, we can surmise this, and it's probably something along those lines, but we don't know for sure. We don't know the details of what was going on there. But once all of Jadis's people were killed, she didn't want to be on the outside anymore. So she sold Rick to them as sort of a buying in sort of thing. In order to get in to the CRM, she had to give them Rick. But again, we're not sure what A versus B means exactly, and we're not sure exactly, you know, what the details are of the agreement. But it's something along those lines. And yeah, I think Tamiel and Brian and some of the others, they absolutely knew about the CRM. They had to, because she did. But it became a moot point because they were killed by Simon. So it's yet another of those mysteries that we're waiting to find out. And hopefully when we get to the Rick and Michonne spinoff, they'll give us a lot of these answers, and it'll be really interesting to learn what they are. Okay, I'm going to call it there for today, and I'll be back tomorrow.